You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the directors of the New York State Urban Development Corporation doing business as Empire State Development for our board meeting this Thursday, April 20th, 2023. Like we always do, I'd like to go around the horn here and just introduce everybody who's seated at the table. And again, I'm Kevin Law, I'm the chair of the board, and
Hope Knight, President and CEO of Empire State Development.
Hilda Rosario Escher, Director.
Benson Martin, Designee for the Department of Financial Services.
Patricia Bailey, VP of Digital and New Media here at ESD.
Goldie Wexel, Acting Counsel.
Lisa Hoffheiser, Director of Compliance.
Ray Orlando, Chief Financial.
Matt Gray, Treasurer.
Heidi Knobloch, Interim Director of NYSTAR.
Maria Mitchell, the VP, Senior VP for Life Sciences.
Liz Luskin, EVP Small Business and Technology Development.
Arden Sokolow, EVP Real Estate.
Noah Raymond, Chief of Staff.
Sherry Glee, Director.
John Wong, Asian American Business Development Center.
Michael Rosen, Director.
great. Well, welcome everybody, and staff is with us too. Thanks for coordinating everything and keeping us all in line. I'll recognize a quorum with everybody here, and we'll get going. I'd like to remind staff members joining us remotely today to please mute your radio, your audio, until you are ready to speak, and please be sure to state your name before you do. The public was given an opportunity to participate in today's meeting, and no members of the public are here with us. Also, the members of the public were given an opportunity to comment on all of our agenda items by noon yesterday, and we have not received any items or any comments from the public regarding today's agenda. The directors, of course, as always, have been presented with all of the materials and backup materials to the items that we'll be addressing and voting on today. At the appropriate time, if any board members have any potential conflicts of interest, please identify them before we start discussing that item. And I'm going to get to the first item on the agenda today, which is the approval of the minutes of the March 23rd, 2023 directors meeting. I will move them. Michael seconds them. Are there any comments, revisions, or additions to the minutes? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. The minutes are approved. I'll hand it over to our esteemed President and CEO, Hope Knight, for her President's report.
Thank you, Kevin, and good morning, directors. This morning, I'd like to share some of the events that I've attended over the past month. At the end of March, I participated in a life sciences fireside chat with Crane's Business New York. I was joined by representatives from JLL and CUNY's Grad School of Public Health and Health Policy to talk about the growth of the life sciences industry in New York State. At the event, I announced ESD's $25 million investment in the Lab of the Future at Deerfield's New York City Innovation Campus. The pilot lab will help bring vital medical discovery work back to the U.S., combating the outsourcing of drug discovery and development. There was a lot of excitement around this announcement and about the lab's possibilities. And I'd like to thank Liz Luskin, Maria Mitchell, and our life sciences team for all of their hard work on this effort. It's hard to believe that it's been just 6 months since we announced the Micron decision to build in central New York. Much has happened and much continues to happen in the wake of that announcement. Although Rob Simpson's not here, he can surely attest to that. Over the past month, I've attended 2 different events in different parts of the state as a result of Micron's decision. Yesterday, I was in Albany with Governor Hochul for a semiconductor discussion at SUNY. This forum was designed to underscore the importance of STEM learning in our schools and promote the different paths to careers in the semiconductor industry. And earlier this month, I was in Syracuse with Senator Schumer, Micron, and the National Science Foundation. At that press conference, they announced a regional university development network. Governor Hochul has been a champion of a vocal champion of a growing New York semiconductor industry and supporting opportunities. Thanks to our world-class schools, colleges, and universities, we're fortunate to have some of the best talent in the world here in New York. It's a big part of why companies like Micron are choosing to come to New York. As we look ahead, especially as we grow the semiconductor industry here, it's important that we continue to invest in our people by focusing on STEM and learning and engaging with students at an early age. We are connecting them to careers and industries of tomorrow and helping to attract new businesses and more jobs right here in New York. This is why, at the governor's direction, we launched our Office of Strategic Workforce Development. Both of these events reinforce the state's commitment to the semiconductor industry and growing the 21st century workforce, and I'm proud to be part of both of them. In closing, I'd like to take a moment to thank ESD's team for all of their hard work, especially in the past few months. As an agency, we are far from the largest, but involved in so many of the state's activities. Our programs cover so many industries and businesses, and the work we do every day creates tangible, positive benefits for the people of New York. So I want to thank the staff for everything that they do, thank the board of directors for supporting us, and that concludes my report.
Great, thank you. Hope may not be the largest, but we're the most important. If we do say so ourselves. So thanks. Any questions for Hope from the board members? No? Hope, any update on the budget? I know it's late, but trying to finalize it. Any last minute changes that might impact ESD?
I don't think any last minute changes that will impact ESD. I was in Albany last night, and there's still a lot of discussion around a couple of key items, so we'll see.
Great. Well, I'm glad we're not the key item. So very good. All right. Thank you, Hope. We'll continue with our agenda. Next up, with some corporate actions, we have Ross Levy, the Executive Director, Vice President for Tourism, and we have some guidelines to update. Is Ross here?
Thank you, Kevin. Yes, thank you, Kevin. Good morning. Sorry I can't be with you in person. I am here in Oswego on the shores of beautiful Lake Ontario at the annual New York State Tourism Industry Association Conference. So
nice.
I'm happy to be with you. Yeah, and I'm seeing tourism before my very eyes with people doing fishing out on Lake Ontario, so that's great. But happy to be with you today. With the state budget still pending, the Division of Tourism is requesting authorization to finalize and publish updated guidelines for the implementation and administration of the Market New York grant program. As the board knows from projects you have approved at previous board meetings, the Market New York grant program works to strengthen tourism and attract visitors to New York State by promoting destinations and attractions and special events. The Market New York grant program has been successfully awarding grants totaling upwards of $125 million for the past 12 years as part of the overall Regional Economic Development Council process. Entities that may apply for these funding include not-for-profit corporations, municipalities, our tourism promotion agencies, public benefit corporations, and for-profit companies. And the Market New York program requires a 50% match for working capital marketing projects and an 80% match for capital projects. For the 2023-2024 fiscal year, we are anticipating and hoping that $15 million will be included in the 23-24 New York State budget once approved for Market New York. That would be $7 million for tourism marketing projects and $8 million for tourism capital. Following the board's approval and contingent upon that availability of funds in the budget, the grant program would be announced together with the launch of the next round of REDC funding. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you, Ross. Any questions for Ross? No? Do we have a motion on the, by Sherry, second by Hilda?
Yes.
Any other comments or questions on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. The motion is approved. Thank you, Ross.
Thank you.
Next up is Thomas Scaglione. He's our Regional Director of ESD's Mid-Hudson region, and he has an item on the Mid-Hudson Momentum Fund and additional guidelines for us to adopt. Tom?
Yes, good morning. Thank you, Kevin. Good morning, directors. The directors are requested to authorize the implementation and administration of the Mid-Hudson Momentum Fund and the adoption of the program's guidelines. The fund includes $150 million as part of an appropriation from the fiscal year 2022-2023 New York State budget to support investments in infrastructure, transit-oriented development, and mixed-use housing projects throughout the 7 counties that make up the Mid-Hudson region. The fund will focus on addressing the strain caused by the population increase due to COVID. ESD will administer the fund and coordinate the project selection process, application administration, and ongoing reporting by awardees. The fund will perform, the MHREDC will perform an initial review of applications and make recommendations to ESD based on each application's alignment with the regional strategy. Ideal projects will have some or all of the following attributes, including community support, will result in increased affordable housing units, leverage non-state investment, are financially sound, and can begin quickly. These catalytic developments may be multi-year projects, but must be either ready to commence construction within 2 years of being selected for funding or be completed within 6 years. Projects that can be completed faster will score higher. The fund will be allocated into 2 categories as follows: $75 million to support mixed-use housing and/or TOD projects, and then $75 million to fund infrastructure projects that support housing projects, increase housing density, or support TOD projects. Grant amounts will range from a minimum award amount of $2.5 million to a maximum award amount of $10 million, and 50% of total project costs must be sourced from non-state funds. For example, a $5 million Mid-Hudson Momentum award amount would support a minimum $10 million total project cost. Eligible applicants will include not-for-profits, municipalities, public benefit corporations, and for-profit companies. Eligible projects and uses of funds will include construction, expansion, and rehabilitation of facilities, equipment and machinery purchases, infrastructure and site development, design and engineering related to construction. Eligible projects will include residential with no other uses at the project location, casino or gambling institution, legal services, medical and nursing services, retail firms with no other eligible components, and refinancing. Scoring and project review, applicants will submit an application to ESD. The applicant may be asked to make a presentation to the council, at which time they can describe the project and take questions from the REDC, as well as ESD staff. The REDC will then make recommendations to ESD, who will make final award determinations. This is similar to ESD CFA review process, and the fund will run concurrent to the open enrollment review periods of the CFA. It is the goal of ESD to provide award notification approximately 60 to 90 days after an application is submitted, and projects may not commence until such award notice is received and acknowledged in writing. The ESD award notification will outline the terms and conditions of the award and will include an MWBE utilization goal for every award. The applicant will be required to submit to ESD an MWBE utilization plan, and ESD staff will work closely with awardees to meet the MWBE goals. The grantee of a project which includes affordable housing units shall be solely responsible for verification of compliance with the requirements set forth under the guidelines sent to the board. The grantee shall be required to file an annual declaration confirming that the property containing affordable housing units has been inspected and has been found to have been maintained in good operating order and condition. Such declaration shall further state that incomes of tenants of affordable housing units have been verified and have been found to qualify for such housing in accordance with the requirements set forth under the guidelines. And this is similar to what is done as part of the Restore New York program. This proposed program has been reviewed by Council's Office, Loans and Grants Division, and the policy team, and we expect a maximum of 60 awards, which is operationally viable for both the ESD Regional Office and the Loans and Grants Division. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Tom. Can you please clarify one thing? In the sentence that you were highlighting related to casinos and healthcare facilities, I thought you said the word eligible. You meant ineligible, correct?
That's correct, ineligible. This is in line with our ESD capital grant requirements as well.
Got it. All right. Thank you. Any questions from the board members? Hearing none. Is there a motion by John, seconded by Michael? Any other comments, questions? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None? The motion carries. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Next up, Joshua Breitbart, Senior VP, Connect All, with another set of guidelines for us to approve. Joshua?
Thank you, Chair. Coming to you from beautiful downtown Syracuse. And thank you to President Hope and members of the board for the opportunity to bring this matter to you today. The directors are being asked to adopt the submitted guidelines for the Affordable Housing Connectivity Program and authorize the taking of related actions. The Affordable Housing Connectivity Program is one of the signature programs announced by Governor Hochul in establishing the Connect All agenda. As announced by the governor on March 29, 2023, the U.S. Treasury Department awarded $100 million to New York State for the Affordable Housing Connectivity Program from the Coronavirus Capital Projects Fund of the American Rescue Plan Act. These funds must be expended before December 31st, 2026. Empire State Development, through the office, has the responsibility and the honor to administer this funding award consistent with the goal as stated in the New York State Urban Development Corporation Act to, quote, assist in ending the digital divide, supporting a more robust and competitive internet marketplace, and carrying out other actions to ensure universal access to high-speed, reliable, and affordable broadband. The Affordable Housing Connectivity Program funding will fund the cost of fiber optic connections to buildings, new and upgraded in-building wiring, and additional network components and equipment required to deliver upgraded broadband service to residents of affordable housing properties. This program is for existing properties, not for new construction. Eligible applicants for this funding will include internet service providers, managed service providers, broadband infrastructure owners, broadband infrastructure builders. Affordable housing property owners are not eligible recipients of funds for this program. By lowering the barrier for internet service providers to access broadband infrastructure to and within these buildings, the program will change broadband delivery economics and increase affordability of service options for low-income consumers. The program will connect a projected 100,000 households to reliable, high-speed, affordable broadband service. Thank you, and I can take any questions.
Great. Thank you, Joshua. Any questions for Josh? No? All right. I will move these guidelines. Is there a second? Hilda? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None? The motion carries. The corporate actions are completed. We will now get to our spotlight presentation. And today we have Patricia Bailey, Vice President and Director of Entertainment and New Media Development, and she will give us a presentation on the digital gaming program.
Yes, great. Thank you so much. And thank you all for allowing me to present on the New York State Digital Game Development Tax Program this morning. I will go ahead and start off with giving you all a quick overview of introducing the team. I'll also go over some background on the digital game development industry. I'll provide some more information on the digital game development tax credit. And I'll also let you know about the outreach we've been doing since this tax credit came to be, and give a quick overview of the applications we've received so far. And then I'll open the floor up for questions. So first, I'd like to introduce the team behind the digital game tax credit. We are led by Rhoda Glickman, who is here with us today. She is the Senior VP of the Film, Arts, and New Media Development. Myself, we also have Shaylin Gianpetroni, who is also here with us today. She is the Senior Project Manager of the Strategic Planning Partnerships Program, Film, Tech, and New Media. We also work with Connie McFeely, Director of Entertainment Tax Incentives, and of course, John Diaz, Deputy Director of Entertainment Tax Incentives. So a bit of industry background. This is a growth industry. Back in 2020, it was estimated to be $196.9 billion industry worldwide, and PwC estimates that the global worth of this industry will be $321 billion by 2026. And according to the Entertainment Software Association, ESA for short, the This is the primary digital game development advocacy organization in the U.S. The direct industry output in the U.S. was $40.9 billion in 2020. This same impact report placed New York State at number 4th in the nation with an estimated economic output of $976.4 million in 2020. Just to kind of give you a little bit of perspective, California came in at number 1 with over half of that $40 billion at $22 billion, followed by Washington State at $5.6 billion and Texas at $1.7 billion. Their 2020 report also identified in New York State 94 publishers, developers, or hardware state companies. Our team is currently working on updating that information because we feel that's a bit dated. The report also identified 23 higher education programs, including 2 of the top programs in the nation at NYU and RIT. So, what is the purpose of this New York State digital game tax credit? So we've been engaged with the industry for many years. And one thing that they've always been addressing to us is that they feel like what the state really needs to kind of that inflection point for the ecosystem was an as-of-right tax credit to help the industry really take off. I'll cover this a little bit more later in the presentation, but this particular tax credit really is designed to increase the investment in digital game development in the state and support the state's existing ecosystem. So a history on this tax credit. It passed last year in the 2022 budget. In the spring and summer of last year, the ESD team connected with industry contacts and conducted interviews to draft the regulations and the guidelines. In the fall of 2022, the draft regulations were open for public comment. In November 2022, the initial application opened. In December 2022, the official regulations were finalized. And in January 2023, the program fully launched. So we are now just over 4 months into this program. So what is the basic structure of this digital game tax credit program? It is a 25% tax credit on all qualified production costs in New York City. Outside of New York City, that percentage jumps to 35%. There is a maximum qualified costs of $4 million may be used for the calculation of the digital game tax credit. So, for example, if the project, if the project is over $4 million in New York City, they would be receiving $1 million in tax credit. Outside of New York City, they would be receiving $1.4 million in tax credit. And there is also a minimum spend of $100,000 on total production costs. So qualified costs, we define them as digital game media production costs incurred and paid within New York State directly and predominantly related to the creation, production, or modification of a qualified digital gaming media production. So think more in lines of the actual coding of the game, game design, animation, 3D arts, etc. What we are excluding are roles like human resources, marketing, and sales. I'd also like to add that these costs include up to $100,000 in wages and salaries for individuals other than actors and writers. We are also excluding that talent, who are either directly employed by the applicant entity and the project or employed by third-party vendors providing services for the project. Bless you. So application requirements, just a really quick rundown of what we require. It's pretty much in line with most of ESD's tax credits. We do require contact information, company information, including number of employees. The project information, we do want to know what sort of platform these games are running on. Is this a mobile device? Is this going to be on some sort of PC or a console? We also want an estimation of the production costs and the qualified costs, the start and end date of the project, a description of the game, and a percentage of the qualified costs that will be spent in New York State. We also request an estimated employment summary and a diversity plan, which I'll follow up with more information. We also request that they agree to in-credit requirements, which is the logo, which I'll also refer to later. We have questions on related persons, economic incentives that they have already received from New York State, project funding, publisher information, FOIL acknowledgement, and we do ask that they provide us with a game design document. And finally, we do ask that they provide signature. So the diversity plan, this is required on the application. All applicants must complete this plan, and through this, the company must consider how their employment strategy will look for this particular project. That's to say, will they be making any sort of attempt at employing underrepresented talent in this project? So applications are received in two parts. There's the initial application, so this is submitted before the application starts, and a final application, which is submitted after the project is complete. The initial application is received on a rolling basis. The application review process right now is actually pretty I think right now, because the applications are so new, we're talking with every applicant as they come in. The program staff sets up an initial call meeting once we've received an application. And, we're really kind of just discussing not only if they have any questions, but to also kind of have a better feeling for any issues they had with the application, and also for us to fully understand the project. And this has so far been great because it's also been giving us a lot of great feedback on the application itself and how, they feel about the tax credit. Applicants will be notified of their eligibility within 90 days of submitting their application. And if they, require it, we can also, once they've been accepted, we can provide them with a certificate of conditional eligibility. The final application is submitted after their project is complete, and with different games, this varies. It could be within 6 months, it could be within 3 years. But this application is submitted via the same portal that they submitted their initial application. The questions are mainly, confirmation of what they initially put in the first application. So basically, their estimates are now becoming actual spent. And once this is approved, the applicant will receive the certification of tax credit. So the ESD team has been promoting this program through a variety of outlets, from meetings with stakeholders, press releases, trade shows, panels, networking events, promotions, webinars, pretty much, the whole gamut. We've been doing what we can to get the word out. So pictured above is the Game Developers Conference, GDC for short, which we hosted a New York State Pavilion at last month. It had great success, and as you can see, we had a lot of attendance and interest. I've also pictured there a panel that I did earlier in January, in Troy to promote the digital game tax credit. So you might all be wondering what the heck is on your desk. This is the New York State logo. This logo was created by ESD Marketing. I'd like to give a shout out to Mark Hamilton, who really did a great job with this design. And so this logo serves two purposes. It's to help certify the project by being placed within a game and or the game's packaging. So this thing will be this is a logo that should be easily findable within any game that receives the digital game tax credit. But as you also see, so I've put not only this palm card, which will give you direct access to the application itself, but also this pin that we've been using and been very popular, especially at the Game Developers Conference, to help really get the word out and people are interested in what New York State is doing. So as you'll see with this pin as well, it's not just a logo to certify people who've been part of the digital game conference, or sorry, of the digital game tax credit, but it's also a really great tool just to promote New York State in general and the digital game industry that is currently producing a lot of great things here in the state. So kind of a brief overview of what we've received so far in the past 4 months. This has been pretty strong. So far we've accepted 5 applications. We've actually received nearly 20. which a few are, still in process. Some have not been accepted, but right now we have 5 accepted, and all the applications are really well represented throughout the state. Interestingly enough, most of these applications have been coming from the Capital Region, followed by New York State and also the Finger Lakes. So, with that said, I'd love to open up to any questions anyone might have about this industry or the tax credit.
Right. Well, thank you, Patricia. Having 2 sons and having spent a small fortune on video games over the last 20 years, it's great to see that some of it is being homegrown here in New York. If you said it, I missed it. Do we have a handle on how many different gaming companies there are in New York, how many people they employ, and is there a part of the state where there is a sort of a concentration of them?
Yeah, so the ESA report said about 94 in their 2020 report. We think it's pretty stale, so we're actually going through right now to get a better idea. We did meet a lot of them through our promotion of the GDC Pavilion, but I think there's many more out there. A digital game company can be just one person, so it's really kind of hard to pinpoint, but we definitely think there's more than 94. Great question on the concentration. We do have a really strong ecosystem up in the Troy-Albany area. That's actually, like I said, where most of the applications are coming from. New York City and then the Finger Lakes, especially Rochester, are also a great concentration of digital games. That also happens to be where the NYSTAR Centers of Excellence are for digital game development. So, we also work well with those groups to really help promote and get, more interaction with a lot of these studios that are existing. And in terms of numbers of employees, we don't have a strong number on that yet. We're going to go ahead and start working on that as well and get a better sense of like the sizes of the studios that do exist. But I think that, the economic output at least is kind of the best indicator to kind of get a feel for that. And I think, as I said before, we're just under about $1 billion in that.
2 more questions. Any of our SUNY or CUNY schools or private universities have video game design programs or certificates?
Yeah. SUNY has a lot of programs. We actually had SUNY Poly attend the Pavilion with us. They have a really strong digital gaming program. I know there's others. They're actually also currently listed on the ESA website, but these programs are developing all the time. So I'm sure there's more that they haven't captured. CUNY actually just in partnership with the city released another program. I think Hofstra has something in partnership with them, so you can start at CUNY and then go to Hofstra. Might need to get a bit more certification on that, but the city is also really working hard on getting digital game development education going.
Great. Sherry, did you have a question?
So this is a purely political question, but people worry about these digital games, right? That they promote violence or whatever. Do you in your review of the game, do you look at that at all? I'm always worried that somebody will say this violent game which caused somebody to do some terrible thing was actually funded by
So
ESD.
that is an argument that, definitely ESA has been, addressing directly for a long time, but funny enough, most of the digital game growth has nothing to do with the kind of quote-unquote violent games that you see. The growth is actually happening in mobile, and many of these games like Candy Crush or like Farmers or whatnot, that is actually where the growth is. But the actual I think the first-person shooter type games, that really is, while it does exist within the industry, you can kind of see it more in the lens of any sort of entertainment, music, film. There are violent aspects of that, but within digital gaming development, because most of the growth really isn't happening specifically on that, and most of the people who are using digital games are more skewed to the older crowd. Maybe it's just they grew up with games and, more or less my age now, playing on their phones. But really, we are seeing kind of like that pivot from that concern to more of actually it's becoming just ubiquitous in our society.
Great question, Sherry, and a great answer. Interesting. Anybody else have any questions? In terms, when you said New York is 4th, do the other, California, Washington, and Texas, do they have tax credit programs too? And how does our tax credit compare to theirs?
So interestingly enough, no, they don't. Texas does. They actually have it folded in within their film tax credit, and it's a little bit strange in the sense that it's not it's because the state doesn't have tax credits, it's kind of more of a refundable sort of program. So I hesitate to call it a tax credit program. It's kind of different in that sense. And that is one of the reasons why it moved and kind of surpassed us to number 3. The story with California and Washington State, and California it's almost ridiculous how large it is. That's mainly because those are legacy industries. A lot of digital game developments began as offshoots of defense, right? So often if pilots were being trained on simulations, that then that talent was able to spin off and start their own digital game companies in the 70s and 80s. Then you had companies like Nintendo basing themselves in Redmond in Washington State. So those kind of ecosystems started off and have just been growing for the past 4 decades on their own. Because of that, California and Washington State really have no need to move forward with a tax credit. Right. New York State, on the other hand, I think really has this kind of great ecosystem with the education and a lot of talent here that ends up being drawn over to the West Coast. So this tax credit is, I believe was put together basically to make sure that we retain that talent and have them really start considering growing here in New York State.
Right. All right. Anybody else? Good. Thank you, Patricia, for a terrific presentation. Again, every month we learn about something very cool that we're doing that most people have no idea that we're doing. And so it's helping to attract and retain jobs, and that's always a good thing.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Right. Thank you so much.
All right. Let's move on to our regional project section of the agenda. And we'll start in Western New York, where we have 2 items that will require 2 separate votes. And we have Paul Tronalone, our VP of Policy and Planning in Western New York, I believe on the phone with us.
Yes, good morning, Kevin. Good morning, directors. As you said, I have 2 items for your consideration. They're somewhat interrelated. They're both located in the Northland Corridor redevelopment area on the east side of Buffalo, or what we call the Northland campus now. For the first item, the directors are requested to approve a general project plan amendment to provide an additional $1.8 million in capital and working capital funds to an already awarded $200,000 planning grant to the Buffalo Urban Development Corporation, or BUDC, for the design, development, and operation of the initial components of a solar microgrid on the Northland campus, and the development of a solar panel training curriculum to be used at the Northland Workforce Training Center, which is also located on the campus. The amended total funding of $2 million is part of ESD's 2019 East Side Corridor Economic Development Fund. After the completion of the planning study, the remaining $1.8 million balance of the project was delayed in the wake of COVID-19 restrictions, and because additional funding was required for all the planned features of the microgrid system. Subsequently, the microgrid was included as one component in ESD and BUDC's 2022 application for an $18 million project under the U.S. Economic Development Administration's Build Back Better Regional Challenge, as well as for additional funding under the state budget. Now, the U.S. EDA awarded BUDC $14.4 million in federal funds for the $18 million project. The $1.8 million under this amendment would provide half the required $3.6 million non-federal match for the project, with the balance coming from additional funds under the state budget, which is part of the next item for your consideration. Now, for that second item, the directors are asked to approve a general project plan that would provide BUDC with $55 million in capital funds towards a total program of almost $73 million to undertake phase 3 of rehabilitation and redevelopment of the remaining buildings on the 35-acre Northland campus. This will result in almost $250,000 or 250,000 square feet of new space and completion of the full complement of components of that campus microgrid. Under the general project plan, a total of 7 sub-projects will be undertaken by BUDC over the next 5 years, with the initial one associated with BUDC's Build Back Better Regional Challenge project, for which that $1.8 million in ESD funds will be used towards the balance of the required non-federal match. Also in the near term, BUDC will be working to rehabilitate intended 631 Northland Avenue, the sister building to 683 Northland, which houses the Workforce Training Center and other private tenants, and is the remaining structure of the historic Niagara Machine and Tool Works complex. Under the terms of the general project plan, ESD funds will be advanced periodically for each sub-project over the next 5 years as each one progresses through design, bidding, and construction. And with that, I'll open it up to any questions.
Great. All right, the materials previously have been shared with the board. Do any board members have any questions for Paul? All right, hearing none, we'll take the first vote on the BUDC Solar Microgrid GPP. Moved by Michael, seconded by Hilda. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. Motion is approved. And next on the Northland Corridor Redevelopment GPP, John moves it, and Sherry again, Hilda again seconds it. Any comments, questions on the motion? Nope. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. The motion is approved. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, directors.
Okay, next up is our Regional Director of the Finger Lakes Region, Laura Fox O'Sullivan.
Good morning, Kevin. Thank you. We are asking the directors to approve a $400,000 capital grant to Toptica Photonics, Inc. from the Regional Capital Fund Round 11. The grant supports the expansion of the company into a new 20,000 square foot facility in the town of Pittsford in Monroe County, including building renovations and purchase of machinery and equipment. Toptica was founded in Germany in 1998 and initially established a U.S. facility in Massachusetts before relocating to Victor, New York in 2002, which is just down the road from Pittsford. As a developer and manufacturer of high-end laser systems for scientific and industrial applications, their customers include some of the largest original equipment manufacturers in the quantum market, government agencies, universities, and research labs. The investment is about $2.7 million, with the company providing about $2.3 in its own equity. The project will retain 32 employees at the project location and create 22 net new full-time jobs, 7 of which have already been created for a total current employment of 39. The company was also awarded $1 million in Excelsior Jobs Program tax credits for the creation of the 22 net jobs. Can I take any questions on this one?
Great. Laura, thank you, Laura. Any questions for Laura? All right. Great to see companies up there expanding and creating more jobs. No questions from the directors. We received no comments from the public. Just like on the last resolution, the 2 resolutions, we did not receive any comments from the public on those either. So I will move this. John seconds it. Any further questions? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. The motion carries. Thank you, Laura.
Excellent. Thank you.
Good. And just a reminder, people on the phone, if you're not speaking, to please mute your phone. We're hearing a little bit of feedback on the last 2. Thank you. So let's move over to Central New York. We have James Fail, our Regional Director of the Central New York region. Jim?
Good morning. The directors are being asked to approve a $400,000 grant on a $2.9 million project to Armored One. This company provides a security film and installation on glass doors and provides some security training. This project is expected to complete it by the end of the year, and it's met its criteria to receive its first installment payment. It's going to create 35 jobs in addition to its current level of 29, and this was a round 9 priority project. And I'd be glad to take any questions.
Thank you, Jim. Any questions? No? All right. I will move this. John seconds it. No comments from the public. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. The motion carries. Thank you, James.
Thank you.
Moving over to the Capital Region, Heidi Nabla, our Interim Director, Division of Science, Technology, and Innovation.
Good morning, directors. Today I'm requesting the directors authorize a $325,000 grant for Fuse Hub, which is the statewide Manufacturing Extension Partnership Center. Fuse Hub will use the funding to provide modernization assistant grants to defense-focused manufacturing companies. It's important to note that the requested grant is a disbursement of federal dollars provided by the Department of Defense to NYSTAR. Fuse Hub provides New York State manufacturers and technology companies with guided access to its extensive network of industry experts, programs, and assets to solve productivity, commercialization, research and development issues, and other challenges to growth. The organization helps startups and small to medium-sized businesses seeking to grow their businesses in New York State and provides specialized manufacturing resources as well as access to funding opportunities. New York State is home to 10,000 defense contractors, over which 1,600 are manufacturers. This grant will be used to fund projects that help defense-focused manufacturing companies modernize their operations through new applications of technology, training workforce to leverage new technology, and improving supply chain resistance through transition to sustainable or domestically sourced materials. Fuse Hub will match the $325,000 grant with $100,000. Fuse Hub has been the beneficiary of past ESD support, specifically for the Innovation Venture Competition Program, and in February the board authorized $2.1 million for the continuation of the commercialization competition. I am recommending that the directors authorize this $325,000 grant to Fuse Hub, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Great. Thank you, Heidi. Any questions for Heidi? Heidi, you're keeping track on how many mistakes I'm making? Hearing none, I will move it. Hilda seconds it. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None? Thank you, Heidi. So we'll move on to the Mid-Hudson region. We got two items, two separate votes. We have Tom Scaglione, our Regional Director of the Mid-Hudson region again. Tom?
Thank you. So I'll go over both items. The first one, the directors are requested to approve disbursement for the City of Middletown capital project. The incentive is a $500,000 award from CFA Round 5 for Regional Council capital funding. The City of Middletown invested $4,237,000 to renew and expand the existing water infrastructure from the city's water treatment plant over to the City of Middletown's community campus, which was the former Middletown Psych Center for Orange County. The project was completed in 2022. Specifically, the project involved the installation of a new 24-inch as well as a 12-inch water transmission line that replaced an outdated 20-inch, 18-inch, and a 12-inch transmission line, which was the part of an upgrade. The water, sewer, and stormwater infrastructure at the location was archaic, plagued by failures, including vulnerable main water distribution loop system that hampered firefighting efforts during fires at the campus. The underground utilities were routed through open areas and tunnels and have capacities that were compromised. The issues were significantly hampered economic development growth at the shuttered former psych center for several decades. Improved water service to the area has allowed for an upgraded water system to not just on campus at the former psych center, but also to a third of the City of Middletown as well as the current Fayetien College, which has been located to a part of the shuttered psych center with the city's efforts. Fayetien College offers both undergraduate and graduate programs and currently has 62 employees. There are other businesses that are in talks about being attracted to the area due to economic activity spurred by the success of Fayetien College on the site. The project supports regional economic activity as it supports significant investments by Fayetien College and will result in additional acreage of shovel-ready development, and the creation of the site will attract development to Middletown, providing spending in support of other revitalization efforts. The project aligned with the MHREDC's LIVE strategy, as it is an investment in infrastructure improvements, including the restoration, rehabilitation, and repurposing of existing assets. Happy to answer any questions on this project. If not, I'll go to the second one, and we can take the questions all together at the end. The second project that we're requesting is the approval of $367,100 of a regional council capital grant from round 11 for Hudson River Fruit, CA Warehouse 2021 capital project. This was in the town of Marlborough in Ulster County. Hudson River Fruit Distributors invested $1,835,500 to construct a 20,000 square foot controlled atmosphere, or CA, apple storage facility, which was completed in August of 2022. The facility is located in the hamlet of Milton in the town of Marlborough in Ulster County, and increased the capacity, resulting in the creation of 7 new jobs, which currently has 60 employees. And Hudson River Fruit is a 4th-generation family-owned apple grower that's been in existence since 1963. The company is one of the largest East Coast apple shippers and represents over 70 other commercial apple growers in New York State and New England. The company broke ground on the project on September 14th, 2021 to construct the new cold storage facility, which now has a capacity for over 100,000 bushels of apples. And this eliminates the cost of what they were doing before, which was moving apples to storage facilities over 75 miles away. This helps keep produce local and cut down on carbon emissions. And the project aligned with MHREDC's play strategy and the regional economic cluster plan of food and beverage manufacturing and supply chain by supporting the growth of local growers, and will allow for increased capacity to store and ship product to local markets, particularly in New York City. The project also aligns with our work strategy, but with the project creating 7 net new jobs and the retention of 60 jobs. Happy to take any questions on both items.
Great. All right. Well, thank you, Tom. Any questions for Tom? All right. Let's address the Middletown application first. Motion by Michael, seconded by John. No questions from the public. Any other questions from the board members? No? No comments from the public. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Now on to the Milton application. We'll take a motion by Hilda, seconded by Benson. Any comments? Questions? No comments from the public either. So all in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? None. Both motions carry. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up, Kelly Baccarizzo, Director of Tourism and Grant Programs, and she has a couple of items for us today, too.
Yes, good morning to everybody. The Market New York Grant Program has 2 projects that we would like to request your consideration for. The first project is Rock 2025, Inc., a Finger Lakes-based not-for-profit. They are a strategic alliance of economic development organizations working together to catalyze growth in the greater Rochester region. The organization has been awarded a tourism working capital grant of $300,000 from Market New York in November 2022 under Round 12 of the Regional Economic Development Council. Rock 2025 will use the grant funds to plan and promote a regionally coordinated tourism marketing campaign promoting the Finger Lakes region with a highlight of the greater Rochester's tourism assets. This project is set to be completed by 2025. The second project is the New York Shakespeare Festival, doing business as The Public. This is a New York City-based not-for-profit theater that includes a wide breadth of programming, including free Shakespeare in the Park at the Delacorte Theater in Central Park. In November of 2022, Round 12 of the Regional Economic Development Council, The Public was awarded a Market New York working capital grant of $270,875. This grant supports a portion of the cost to plan and implement a strategic marketing initiative designed to draw tourists domestically and internationally to the New York City region for the 2023 season of Free Shakespeare in the Park, an annual program offering the highest quality theater to the broadest possible audience free of charge. This project is currently underway and is also scheduled to be completed no later than December 31st, 2024. And if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Kelly. This is one vote for 2 items. Goldie, Debbie? Yep. Right. Still don't figure that out, why we needed 2 votes for the last 2. We get to do 2 at one time on this vote, but I will go with recommendations from staff, and I'll move this. Is there a second by Michael? Any questions? There's no comments from the public. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. The motion carries. The motion for both grants carries. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
Next up, Morgan Clark, Project Manager from Small Business Lending.
Yes, good morning. Good morning, Chairman and Directors. Today, I'm asking the Directors to approve the authorization to make individual grants of up to $90,000 each for the 19 CDFIs for a total amount but not to exceed $1,495,000 to provide technical assistance to New York State small businesses under the Community Development Financial Institution Program. The CDFI Assistance Program is a program that provides support for the ongoing operations of New York State CDFIs in their efforts to provide capital and technical assistance to New York State small businesses. Since 1998, ESD has approved over $33.6 million in grants to 50 different CDFIs statewide to improve both the quality and quantity of the services they provide to their communities. For context, during the last round of funding, 22 CDFIs were approved on April 15, 2021 to provide technical assistance to NWBEs and small businesses to apply for COVID-19 relief programs and financial resources. To date, 52,970 small businesses, including NWBEs, were assisted with receiving financial assistance, and more than $369.8 million in loans were dispersed. A total of 36,562 small businesses, including NWBEs, were provided one-on-one technical assistance. This program offers grant support to CDFIs in 3 buckets: technical assistance, institutional capacity, and administrative support. Up to $1,495,000 in grant support was made available under this round of the CDFI Assistance Program. This appropriation for this program was made in the 2022-2023 New York State budget. Grants up to $90,000 will be made available for each of the participating CDFIs. In January 2023, through the New York Contract Reporter, ESD's website announcement, and email outreach, New York State federally certified CDFIs were invited to respond to the CDFI Assistance Program RFA. We received 20 applications. After a review committee read and scored the applications, we recommend 19 CDFIs to participate in this round of funding. The recommended 19 CDFIs are located throughout New York State's 10 regions. I'd be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Morgan. Any questions or comments from the directors? We have no comments from the public either. Entertain a motion by Sherry, seconded by John. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. The motion carries. Thank you, Morgan.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, back to our Community and Regional Partnership Fund, where Heidi Noblocker is back, Interim Director, Division of Science and Technology and Innovation, with 2 items for us.
Good morning again. Today I'm requesting the directors authorize 2 allocations as part of the SSBCI Community and Regional Partner Fund program. The Community and Regional Partner Fund is a $52 million program using federal SSBCI funding to provide equity investments for high-growth New York State companies that participate in select accelerator or incubator programs. On September 15, 2022, the directors authorized the implementation and administration of the program, which requires a 1-to-1 match. The program will be jointly administered by NYSTAR and New York Ventures. I am proposing these 2 initial investments today, but I also want to acknowledge my colleague Jennifer Teagan, Managing Director of New York Ventures, who will co-administer this equity program. Applications for this program will be reviewed monthly until the funds are exhausted. These 2 initial investments will be followed by future investments from the SSBCI Community and Regional Partner Fund in other accelerators that make equity investments in New York State companies. As part of the scoring and due diligence process, staff evaluated each of the accelerator's plans and growth prospects. As a result of that analysis, it is believed that each of the proposed funds will serve the interests of their respective geographies as well as SETI founders. The funds being requested are to invest in companies that are either part of the accelerator programs. These funds are not for operations of the accelerators themselves. And each investment will be matched by private sector funds. In this case, each applicant will provide a $5 million match. The funds will be deployed over 3 years. I'll now go into each of the proposed investments. The potential opportunities warrant investment, and the staff recommends approval of these 2 investment awards, and it's my understanding that these will be 2 separate votes. The first proposed investment is a $5 million investment to Cornell University, which will allow Cornell to invest in early-stage companies who participate in one of 6 separate accelerator or incubators across the state. Cornell will leverage its extensive network of incubators and accelerators, which provide support for young companies looking to scale their businesses. Cornell's network includes 3 incubators in Ithaca, 2 accelerators in New York City, and 1 incubator in Syracuse. 2 of these incubators are community incubators, and all 6 of these programs are supported by a university partner. Cornell will match ESD's investment of $5 million with $5 million in private capital. This funding will be invested into early-stage companies that complete one of the 6 programs. Each year, Cornell aims to make investments in approximately 20 companies for a total of $10 million into 60 companies over 3 years. The second proposed investment is a $5 million investment to Lightship Capital. Lightship Capital will invest this money into companies that successfully complete the Lightship Accelerator. With this proposed investment, Lightship Capital will make investments in early-stage New York companies that have the potential to scale. Lightship Accelerator runs programs for early-stage companies led by underrepresented founders, including women, minorities, and founders classified as SETI. Lightship Accelerator is a 12-week program driving inclusive acceleration, education, and opportunity for minority and female tech founders. Lightship Accelerator has worked with entrepreneurs across the country and has developed partnerships in New York State prior to applying for this funding. The Lightship Fund has committed to invest up to $5 million to match the $5 million committed by ESD. The fund will invest in companies that go through, again, that accelerator, which is going to be based in Harlem. I recommend the directors authorize these 2 investments, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Great. Thank you, Heidi. So these are investments, not grants, but they'll be sort of administered through these incubators as early stage companies. Will the state have some participation in these companies if they succeed and become successful?
They will. So there is, and I'll after answering your question, I'll invite Jennifer to comment too. But there is precedent for this with the SSBCI, the first program for SSBCI, where equity investments were made and the state participated in the profits. So after receiving the capital that we invest back, we would also share in the profit. Jennifer, did you want to say anything in addition?
We'll be monitoring which companies are invested in over time, for, as part of the program requirement anyway. And then obviously if there's opportunity for other funds to participate to support the growth of those companies beyond this really early acceleration stage, then certainly we'll be able to do that with additional program funds that we have at ESD.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other questions for Heidi or Jen? All right, we don't have any comments from the public on either of these items, but we do require separate votes on both. So on the first one with involving the Cornell University, I will move it. Michael seconds it. No comments from the public. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Any opposed? None. The motion carries. And for the investment into the Lightship Capital, Hilda will do that. Taking notes. Hilda will do it, and then John will second it. No comments from the public. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. And Hilda, that was the same exact mistake I did.
That's right.
Right. So I apologize.
I'm flattered.
So No, I think Heidi put the jinx on me. So it was going smooth up until then, but both motions carry. So thank you. We will now continue with the Life Sciences Initiative Fund. 2 items now by Maria Mitchell.
Thanks very much, Kevin. I think you're doing great.
Thank you.
This morning, we're seeking the director's approval for 2 academic biodefense commercialization fund working capital grants totaling up to $1 million. The first one is for Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute for $500,000. And the Research Foundation for the State University of New York on behalf of SUNY Polytechnic Institute for $500,000. As you may recall, the $40 million fund provides grants to startup companies and academic institutions to accelerate the development and commercialization of life science innovations that address serious infectious disease threats, while also creating jobs, encouraging growth across New York State's expanding life science industry. Rensselaer Polytech Institute, led by Dr. Jonathan Dordick, is using the grant to develop nasal formulations for use against respiratory infections, including COVID-19. SUNY Polytechnic Institute, led by Dr. Nathaniel Cady, is using the grant to develop a rapid antibody-based diagnostic test of disease focusing on Lyme, tick-borne, and COVID-19 applications. Both grantees have begun work on these grants, met the required spending thresholds for initial disbursements, and have been recommended by their mentors to proceed to the next technical milestones. Thanks, and happy to answer any questions on that.
Got it. And again, Maria, this is a grant, not an investment.
This is a straight-up grant.
Got it. Very good. I will move it. John seconds it. No comments from the public. Any other questions? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. That first item is approved. Before we get to the next item, Sherry,
I'm recused.
Sherry is recusing herself from discussion and participation in item B, and so let the minutes reflect that. Maria, continue, please.
Okay. Second item is related to New York First Awards. We're seeking the director's approval for 2 New York First grants of up to $1 million each. The first for the trustees of Columbia University in the City of New York, otherwise known as Columbia University, and the second to the University of Rochester. New York First, as you may recall, started in 2018 and is designed to encourage recruitment of exceptional life science researchers from outside the state or retention of researchers in state who are focused on translational research and being recruited out of New York. Such research often leads to new patent startup companies and products with commercial potential. New York First grants are for capital and working capital expenditures supporting the researchers lab, and I made a mistake the last time I spoke to you about that, Kevin. Columbia University is using New York First funds to support the recruitment of Dr. Sabrina Diano from Yale University to serve as director of Columbia's Institute of Human Nutrition. 3 members of Dr. Diano's research team from Yale have accompanied her to Columbia, and a 4th member has joined from the University Hospital in Bonn in Germany. Since the start of this grant, Dr. Diano has hired another 5 individuals, totaling 9 new employees, including 4 from outside of New York, and raised an additional $4.7 million in NIH grants. The total cost of this project is $3 million, and Columbia is contributing $2 million. The second for the University of Rochester, they're using their New York First funds to support the recruitment of Dr. Ruth Moreno from Texas Tech University to serve as an associate professor of microbiology and immunology. She is the first Hispanic woman to be hired as a tenure-track faculty member in this department. 4 members of her team, her research team from Texas Tech, have accompanied her to Rochester since the start of this grant. She has raised an additional $2.2 million in NIH grants. The total cost of this project is $3.1 million, of which the University of Rochester is contributing $2.1 million. I'm happy to answer any questions about those.
Good. Thank you, Maria. Any questions? No? I will move it. Hilda will second it.
Absolutely.
No comments from the public. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. The motion carries. Thank you, Maria. Okay, moving along. New York Ventures, 2 items, 2 separate votes coming up. Sylvia Codeny, Assistant VP, New York State Ventures.
Thank you. Good morning. So we will be requesting approval for 2 investments. The first one is for a follow-on investment up to $175,000 in Envisagenics. The New York State Innovation Venture Capital Fund has previously invested $1.35 million in the company, so this investment will get us to $1.525. Envisagenics is a tech bio company using artificial intelligence in expertise in RNA for the discovery of novel targets that allow the development of novel therapeutics in oncology, metabolic disease, and neurodegenerative diseases. Envisagenics is a revenue-generating company already that has secured a first multi-year R&D collaboration contract with Bristol Myers Squibb, which is one of the major pharmaceutical companies, and is well positioned to also have other such contracts, maybe even this year. Envisagenics is a women and minority-led company and is a spin-out of the Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory in Long Island. This investment will be used for working capital for the company. As part of the due diligence process, as you by now are familiar with, the New York State Innovation Venture Capital Fund staff and an external investment advisory committee have evaluated the company's business plan and growth prospects, and they also have reviewed the investments. As a result of this analysis, both the staff and the IAC committee agree that the market opportunity and the growth potential are guaranteeing our investment into this company, and we recommend approval.
Great. Thank you, Sylvia. I will move that first item, seconded by John. No comments from the public. Any questions from the board members? So I'll take the vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. The motion for Envisagenics is approved. Continue, please.
The other investment is for $1 million in Euro. It's for the Series A funding round. We have invested in this company previously as well for a total of $950,000. Yuba provides software and software-enabled services to help federally qualified health centers to transition to value-based care. Yuba is a minority and women-led company and is also based in New York City. The federal qualified health centers are centers that work with the most vulnerable populations, Medicaid, people under poverty line, and rural areas. One of the main problems of these organizations is the inefficiency they have in their capacity utilization and leadership gaps. So they lack the infrastructure and administrative power to be more competitive. So that is really what Yuba is doing. Takes the administrative burden out of these organizations, which enables them to scale their clinical services and to qualify for the new contracts that are now coming on value-based care that they actually need to get onto. So we are requesting an authorization of an investment of up to $1 million. That would be a Series A preferred. This round is led by Mastery Ventures, and the proceeds will be used for expanding their capabilities and working capital. As the previous investment, we have the same due diligence process, and the result was recommending approval.
The same due diligence process and the same advisory board type of, support for it as well.
Yes, correct.
And when you said this is for Series A and previously we did 950, was that 950 more early stage for this company and we've been helping nurture it and now it's going for a Series A?
Yes, that's correct. The previous ones were seed stage investments. So we also have had the opportunity to monitor the company and see how they evolve. So that's part of why we feel comfortable to put more money in there and help them to the next stage.
Great. Thank you. All right. So I will move that. Michael seconds that. No comments from the public. Any additional comments or questions from the board? Hearing none, take a vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. The motion carries. Thank you, Sylvia. Okay, we're up to the administrative action items, where Doug Janice will walk us through. And this is where we'll get a presentation on about 11 different items. And here we're allowed one vote. And I see here in my notes, Sherry, you'll be recusing yourself from voting on item number 7C. So since it's one vote, just recuse yourself on
The whole thing.
The whole thing. Yes, since it's just
This is our last item, right? May I just leave, or is that going to mess up your quorum?
Nope, we have a quorum.
Okay, cool.
You're welcome.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. But, you know, we like having you here, so.
It's okay, just.
So we'll hand it over to Doug.
Thank you, Chairman, and good morning, Directors. As the Chairman just reminded you that we've previously implemented an oral summary presentation process in connection with the administrative actions section of the agenda. You receive a full set of written descriptive materials for each of these items in your materials, as you have with this meeting. But rather than having an individual oral presentation on each item, I'll provide a brief summary of the items. At the conclusion of the summary, the staff will entertain any questions or comments you have. The items submitted for your consideration today and for which you have received the written materials are summarized as follows. Item 7A is relative to a new lease for office space in Old San Juan, Puerto Rico for the New York State Office of Trade and Tourism. This is a request to enter into a 3-year lease contract with a 2-year option to renew for office space in Old San Juan, Puerto Rico for the New York State Office of Trade and Tourism. The current lease expires this month, and the total contract amount for the 3-year term is $278,000, which includes both rents and improvements to the present. Next item is 7B, which is relative to a lease extension for the office space at 633 3rd Street in New York City. And this is a request to enter into a lease extension with ESD's current landlord, which will terminate no earlier than March 31st, 2024, but no later than June 30th, 2024. Based on the terms of the extension, the current lease expires June 30th of 2023, and the rent during this extension will remain the same. Item 7C is relative to authorization to enter into a contract extension for management of application processes and mentoring services for the $40 million New York State Biodefense Commercialization Fund. Staff is seeking the Director's approval for a 42-month extension of the contract with Columbia Technology Ventures for their continued management of the New York State Biodefense Commercialization Fund. This extension is not to exceed $1,025,000 and ensures that ESD can successfully complete a 3rd application cycle and onboard new grantees with their mentors, with additional funds remaining for as-needed services regarding continued mentor outreach. The initial contract, approved by the ESD Board of Directors in May of 2021, was for 18 months, and a 6-month extension was approved by the ESD Board in February of 2023. DTV, which was selected as a single-source procurement given their unique experience and expertise, has been successfully performing a multitude of tasks vital to the implementation and continued management of the fund, including application management, marketing, stakeholder outreach, and mentoring services. Item 7D is relative to entering into an amended contract to provide architecture and engineering services in connection with the Hutchinson Chapel project in Buffalo. The board is being asked to approve an amendment to a contract with Floyd Albert to provide construction oversight services regarding repairs to the Hutchinson Chapel, which is located in Buffalo and owned by ESD. Contract terms are being extended beyond 1 year. ESD's procurement guidelines require board approval. The amended contract will extend the term of the agreement for 1 year at an amount not to exceed $109,757. The next 2 items, items 7E and 7F, are relative to amending Global New York's consulting services contracts to increase trades between New York and other regions. Both items were originally approved for $31,500 in a period of 10 months. Global New York is seeking an additional $40,000 and a 12-month extension for each contract for total contract amounts of $71,500 and total durations of 22 months to increase trade between New York and India and New York and the Caribbean, respectively. Item 7G is relative to amending a contract with the Martin Group for public relations and social media services. NYSTAR seeks to extend its current contract with the Martin Group for an additional 2 years. The Martin Group will develop and execute a public relations campaign to help NYSTAR identify, activate, and capitalize on statewide, regional, and trade media opportunities, while also building on the work they completed over the last year of the current contract. Martin Group will look for current interests of reporters and media organizations to tie in stories of individual NYSTAR centers or supported sectors. The next two items, 7H and 7I, are relative to entering into memorandums of understanding with New York State Parks and DEC to make U.S. Economic Development Administration Travel, Tourism, and Outdoor Recreation Grant subawards. The Federal Economic Development Administration has granted $45 million over a period of 3 years to New York State and ESD to help New York State's tourism recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. One pillar of the Division of Tourism's EDA work is to further promote New York State as a premier destination for outdoor recreation. Staff is seeking to subaward $4 million to two of our sister agencies, the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation, and the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, to assist on this project through late 2025. Specifically, ESD will be harnessing the expertise and experience of state parks and DEC to supplement I Love New York's activities to help increase access to the outdoors for diverse audiences, promote sustainable and safe recreation, including at lesser-known outdoor destinations, and improve the guest experience with new programming and enhanced digital platforms. The work of Parks and DEC under these subawards will be done in close collaboration with and subject to the approval of I Love New York and the Division of Tourism. Our final item, 7J, is relative to amending the contract for legal counsel relative to freedom of information law work in connection with the Pennsylvania State Area Civic and Land Use Improvement Project. This is a request for authorization to increase the term and contract amount under ESD's existing legal services contract for the current law firm in connection with the freedom of information law claims and litigation related to the Pennsylvania Station Area Civic and Land Use Improvement Project. The firm, which is a New York certified WBE, is on ESD's pre-qualified list of outside counsel and was retained last year to represent ESD's interest after the initial FOIL lawsuit was brought against ESD. The original contract was for a term ending on August 31st, 2023, with a contract limit of $249,000. Staff is requesting that the contract limit be increased by an additional $101,000 to a total amount not to exceed $350,000, and that the contract be extended for one additional year through the end of August 2024, with an option to extend for one additional year through August 2025 at the discretion of ESD's General Counsel. The requested contract amendments are required to enable ESD to continuously retain the firm without interruption in the ongoing litigation and related FOIL claims. And with that, I will now turn it back to our chair, who will call for any questions or comments you may have on any of these items before calling for a vote. We also have item-related staff on the line today as well to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug, for all of those. The materials and backup for each of these items was previously shared with all the board members. We have not received any comments from the public on any of these items, and so I will move them. Hilda seconds them. I'm sorry?
Yeah, I just have a comment.
You have a comment, a question?
No, just a comment about the office in Puerto Rico. I encourage people to go there and visit. Betty, who is the director there, has done a fantastic job, not only in the tourism area, but also economic development. She has developed key relationships in Rochester and all over New York State with different businesses for trade purposes. So I go there and visit every November, and I encourage you to come to the Somos Conference, which starts November after the election, and visit that office. You would be very proud.
Very good, very good. It's good to know. Thank you for sharing that, Hilda.
Yes.
All right, so there's a motion, there's a second. We have no comments from the public on any of these items. No other questions from the board members, so all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. That concludes our business today, official business today. Does any board member have any other item or issue they'd like to raise at this time? Hearing none. Michael makes a motion to adjourn, seconded by John. Next meeting, May 18th. Thank you very much. Thank you, staff, for walking us through the meetings, and have a good week. Good night. See you.
Thank you.